Hey, welcome back to the PowderKeg podcast. We're your favorite emerging up and coming Chargers podcast. I'm Kyle, your host and armchair GM. And as always, I've got Coach Ryan with me, ready to dial in the X's and O's. We are fired up today to talk about trade rumors, a dream trade scenario, some news on Khalil Mack, and a celebratory review of the Raiders game and a preview of the upcoming tilt against the Denver Broncos. Ryan, how are you feeling, man? Excited to get this one underway?
Always, man. Let's dive in. Let's not even talk about it. Let's go. Let's go.
Straight to the good stuff, man. All right. Well, let's just go over before we dive into the games the rumors around the team from this week. The biggest headline is, we had a scare during the game with Khalil Mack going down. That elbow did not bend the right way, man. We were in the group chat on Sunday, kind of freaking out a little bit, but the best case scenario unfolded. The elbow should be okay. As far as we know, it sounds like he's going to be back within a few weeks, probably 4, 5, or 6, somewhere around there, wearing a brace, looking like the bionic man, ready to kick some A. So very excited for that. Ryan, how big is Mack's return schematically, and how big of a loss is it for these next 4 to 6 weeks while he's out?
I mean, Max beginning and ending for me is always his ability to set the edge. Like he at his prime he was incredible at it, and now he's just as good. And everything can be built around that. You can wrap things up, wrap players around him. He can knife inside. Just nothing can get past him, and especially in Jesse Minter's light box run fits. They have to steal a gap back, and Mac does that by collapsing the edge in. Bud can do it to an extent. He got nothing else, but he can do it to an extent. So between him and Tulu, they're gonna have to step up. And when Mac's back, you'll see Jesse Minter be able to be a bit more expansive with his game plan. So he will be missed. That is for sure. Not just in terms of his ability on the field, but his leadership too.
Absolutely. And with him being gone for that period of time, we're kind of in this awkward situation. And when he does come back, Ryan, it's still not guaranteed that that arm's going to hold up the rest of the season. We don't know if this is going to be an ongoing thing or if it's going to hamper his ability with his pass rush arsenal when he's setting that edge. So rumors are flying. We've had Clelin Ferrell has been signed to the practice squad along with Rashad Weaver. But let's talk about another name. There's a very good situation for the Chargers where it's terrible for Bengals fans, and we never like celebrating injuries here. But there is an opportunity in that the Bengals have lost Joe Burrow for at least 3 months, is what reports are saying. They're not willing to come out and say that yet, but all reports are indicating that he's probably not going to be back in a best case scenario until the last couple weeks of the season. So with the Bengals being a notoriously cheap team that has been negotiating in very questionable ways lately, why would they want to spend an extra 16 million to just have Trey Hendrickson waste another year there? If I'm Joe, we got to give them a call. That money is going to be something that we can take on our books because we have so much cap next year. We can push a little bit out. I would love for them to pursue a trade for Trey. What would you think about that? What would you think about him now? What would you think about him with Mack when he returns?
First of all, I heard on a podcast this morning, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, that it's 9.5 million is all we'd have to eat this season to have him on a 1 year contract. And as the TDU guys rightly pointed out, even if you don't sign him to a long-term deal and you lose him and he goes in free agency, he's going to get a monster contract. That's a third round comp pick back. So I'm happy to give up a second right now. But even though it's high, even if because the money is cheap and the later deal that you could get back is rather appealing. And in terms of stylistically, Carl knows this because when we write on the stormcloud.blog, go there. We have a draft section and everyone can see what you're writing. I have had a why the Chargers should trade for Trey Hendrickson article in the drafts for like a year. And I've broken down basically stylistically how he is the absolute perfect edge for Minter system. opposite Khalil Mack. They can both set the edge, but he's got that extra pass rush juice, and he's rushes in the exact style that they want. They want someone quite linear. They don't want someone dancing in and out that's gonna, make the whole scheme fall apart. And Trey is fantastic. You can even slide the line away from him, leaving him in isolation. He's still gonna wreak havoc. So to have him on board would be an incredible ability to up the game plan to another level, and very much the way that the Packers are currently experiencing with
Absolutely.
their new addition. Yeah.
And with, mentioning the Packers, we wrote about this. There's an article on it over at Stormcloud that I did just write up. I should have just passed it over to you, Ryan. My bad, buddy. But I broke down basically the trade compensation, because a lot of people are going to look at Micah Parsons and think, wow, premier edge rusher. You got to pay 2 firsts to get one of those. With Trey, he's older, so you absolutely don't have to. And we have an in-house guy in Khalil Mack that paints that picture for us. When he was in his prime, the Bears had to pay 2 first-round picks to pull him away from the Raiders. But then, when he was past 30, the Chargers were able to grab him for a second with a little change. So when you're looking at what Trey can bring, and that second also came with Khalil Mack on a cost-controlled 3 years. He didn't ask for a new contract. He didn't have any guaranteed money left. They had him on a 3-year contract that they were able to restructure to give themselves some flexibility, but it was a great deal for the Chargers. With Trey, that becomes a little bit less valuable, when they're looking to move him, because he doesn't come with a contract that puts him at some cost-controlled level. We're going to have to either renegotiate with him or let him go. So that's what makes it really exciting to me. Second round pick compensation is kind of what I have gathered right now. Maybe a third, but it's probably a second. Be my guess, since we're going to be on the back half, hopefully, of the drafts. Back fifth of the draft pick slot. So don't be shocked if the Bolts make a move at the deadline, guys. The front office does know the window is now, especially if they keep stacking wins. For now, though, as we just said, they signed Clennon Farrell and Rashad Weaver. If you remember Farrell, he was that surprise 4th overall pick that made no sense. Mike Mayock got fired because he picked Clennon Farrell 4th, and then Max Crosby in the 4th round. Had those been switched, he might still have a job because people wouldn't roast him so much. And Rashad Weaver, a former Tennessee Titan, which we've had a lot of success with. So what do you think about those guys, Ryan? Is there anybody, do you want to see them stepping up and contributing right away, or where are we at with those guys?
The ideal world is that they don't get elevated for some time anyway. The fact that they're still free agents means that no one's got a market for them, so we can keep them stashed as reserves and use the players we have on our roster right now. So there's a huge opportunity for the young players that are around the perimeter of this group to step in. We'll talk about a couple of those later and exactly how their impact can be felt. In terms of their Clelin Ferrell has turned into a fairly solid run-stopping edge with 0 juice. So it's familiar. We're familiar with that type right now. So he slots right in as sort of a replacement that's going to give you a above the ground floor and not much more of a ceiling. And I can't say I know much about Rashad Weaver, I have to say. There is a limit to my tape watching. I've tried to find some highlight clips of his, and nobody's even bothered to put those together, so that tells me something. But yeah.
Strong indicator.
Yeah,
so, okay, moving on from that, there's another nugget that's catching traction, another rumor. JT O'Sullivan over at QB School suggested Shane Day might be the guy that's sprinkling in a little creativity to Greg Roman's passing concepts, which could explain why his offense is suddenly feeling more expansive on the edges. He said that Day was the one sprinkling a little bit of creativity on the outside. Ryan, you've been a big proponent of the Chargers not really changing the game plan too much over last year, that it's been more of like a personnel improvement. But how do you think this could be playing in? Where do you think Shane Day could be adding a little bit of inspiration?
So I mean I know Greg Roman's playbook pretty well at this point, and there are lots of options built into his routes, but it's whether the receivers were willing to do it and how willing was Herbert to do it with them. Obviously, when you have like Thurman and Keenan back in the day, and they just had like this connection whereby you could he just had an innate ability to understand where each other were going to be in terms of their position on the field and in terms of mentally what they're thinking next. If you have someone like Shane Day who's gonna come in and be a bit more expansive in terms of giving everyone giving options in that, it's up to an elite processor like Herbert. He can do it, but we've seen signs of it. So in the Raiders game, for example, Ladd, there was a sail route that he had. That was his route, so we had a dagger concept, and he started to run it. Then he saw the corner sinking, and he thought the flat defender's way below me, the hook defender's behind me. If I sit this down right now, I'm in space and we can get the first down. And he did, and Herbert pinned the ball on him within a second. It was a really smooth connection and an understanding that has taken this offense to another level compared to last season. Last season, you'd have like Ladd run on option concept twice a game maybe, and no one else could get on the same page. Now you're starting to see everyone get in there. We've got 3 receivers who can absolutely do that with Herbert, so it's a really great start. And that was all over the Raiders film.
Yeah, if you saw Keenan's mic'd up, he even mentions like to QJ at one point, I saw you do this, so I went and did that, and that's when he got the touchdown. Like there's cerebral things happening. I agree, man. So it's exciting to see. Let's go back to that Raiders game. Let's stay on that topic. First off, the vibe check. That felt like a physical dominating win, man. That was awesome to see. It wasn't pretty in the second half. However, Harbaugh called it a physical fight, and the media said it was a gritty but necessary win. Big advantage was gained in the AFC West by, and this is something that we have struggled at doing in the past, right? We have an opportunity to strike and we don't always take it. We kind of have fumbled those previously, but no, this time around, the schedule played to our favor. The Chiefs play the Eagles and lose. We play the Raiders and win. Holy crap, Ryan. We are a few days away from having a chance to already be 3-0 in the division. That's our goal. I'm not trying to jinx us here, but that no one's going to shy from the fact that we want to be 3-0 in the division and come out and win this week. So, man, there were some cracks. There were some issues that need to be addressed if we want to reach that goal and be 3-0 this time next week. So, Ryan, what stood out on film that needs to be corrected between now and Sunday?
I mean, it's not the most egregious, but there were some areas that I on the offensive line that sort of reminded me a bit of last year when we had the issues between Zion and Bozeman. Now Bozeman still had his issues, but I'm talking about the gap, the B gap between Becton and Pipkins. Now going against Max Crosby is no mean feat. I understand that, but at the same time, they need to have a better understanding and a better way of passing off, and especially on zone blocks, they just don't seem to have that strong same shoulder philosophy. Because as much as Greg Roman, that works.
Roman, I like that.
is a gap scheme guy. He still likes to run a decent amount of zone, like everyone in the league. Even the Falcons are still like 65-35 in favor of zone. Roman's like a 55-45 guy. And so you still have to be able to have that relationship in that, and it's just not happening. I mean, I know that there were some issues on the other side, but I think this gap in particular is becoming a little bit concerning, especially in the run blocks.
I can't argue that the run blocking has been concerning, but when it comes to the pass blocking, I have a little bone to pick with the direction the media has kind of spun this, especially PFF. PFF slammed Mekhi Becton with a 45.6 grade while giving Pipkins an 84.0. But you got to look at it and judge this based on context and by assignment, right? Like, what's the expectation going into the game? Last week, Max Crosby had 7 pressures on the Patriots by himself. So the week before last, sorry. Plus Booker and Butler each added 5 pressures. That contributed to a total of 27 team pressures. Against the Chargers, they only had a third of those pressures. They had a total of 9. That's insane to me. That's a great process. Crosby himself only had 1. So to me, across the board, the offensive line in the passing game did their job. There's a kicker. Mekhi Becton allowed just 2 pressures all game, which was the same as Zion. Zion only allowed 1 hurry and 1 quarterback hit. Zion was given an 82.8 grade. When they played the
Pass
Pats,
blocking.
when the pass blocking, pass blocking was given an 82.8. That's nuts to me. When the Raiders played the Pats, Will Campbell gave up a sack and 3 hurries, 4 total pressures against Mackay's 2, and he still scored a 72.6. So my question is, where's the consistency there in grading and judging these? Pipkins shined, according to them, and I feel like he did do very well. Again, the team as a whole, they accomplished the assignment. But he only really did so in my mind because Becton was such an anchor. Not even just an anchor, man. He was a whole freaking cruise ship at right guard, all right? He was immovable at times. So much so that Trey was able to take his slide steps and know, hey, Max is going to beat me inside a couple times because I'm taking this aggressive of a slide step. But when he did, for the most part, Max just kept on bumping into either Becton himself or the pass rusher that Becton was blocking. And then both he and Pipkins were just able to neutralize those guys because they were stuck together. Yes, he got beat by Max one time. I think you and I would both expect that to happen throughout the course of a game. Max is a dominant player. But man, if you told me going into this game, if Becton, if you only give up 2 pressures and this line as a whole only gives up 9, I'm giving you guys an A across the board. We did that. So that is my feel. I would say, in fact, Ryan, he looked like the second best offensive lineman to me behind Alt. I really strongly believe that Alt is a pillar on this line and Becton is as well. And the success of the unit as a whole is because of how strong those two are playing. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been quite public with my. It's not a criticism of PFF because their grades belong. They have a place in the game. I don't like when people use it as the totalitarian way of saying whether this player is better than this player, especially across multiple positions. That does never it never sits right with me because it lacks context. Like I know that the Trevor Sycamore goes through and he starts grading like the PFF draft players. If you watch their draft board and their draft grades, they'll finish the games in January and up until April they'll change every single day. Like they'll go up, down, up the board, down the board. If it's a grade and if you stick by it, yeah, that's got to be a grade that's stuck. Even if they have moderators, yeah, I completely understand that. It changes a bit. It doesn't continuously evolve and change, and that for me says that it is more subjective than people let on. And with this, it kind of proves it because if you ask me straight after the game, I watched the broadcast at 5 a.m. on my commute. Which was an experience, me celebrating on the train in front of some very tired strangers. If you asked me at that point to grade his performance, I would have been probably B plus. Like, yeah, he let in those especially the run penetration. Like, I don't know whether that was explicitly his fault, but I would have said okay, it wasn't an A level performance because of those. To have it at 45.6 means that PFF thought he was a detriment to the team, which is just absolutely not the case. So I'm hoping that they'll review it in future days to come, and we'll see it spike upwards. But it does bring me on to another point, though, with the running game. That was another concern I had, especially early in the game. Well, it was just non-existent. It was just a matter of just Amari Hampton battering through tackles on 4th and short. But the good news is that in the 4th, when we tried to drive out the game and like those things we just could not do in previous years, even last year, is that the O-line wore down and Najee put his face in the hole and drove 4-5, and that turned into as well, due to his good understanding of balance, turned into 7-8, and they sealed the game. And that type of drive, when everyone knows it's coming, is demoralizing. And as our friend Jack at TDU said, that as the season goes on, teams start to fall by the wayside. They're not competitive anymore. It's been a long old season. Their back's hurting, their hamstrings hurting, and you see 242-pound Najee Harris and 225-pound. He's not 225-pound. Amarian Hampton. And you're just thinking they're gonna grind out the game, and I've got to go through Becton and Alt, and even Bozeman's huge. So like, that's gonna be a weapon later on. As much as it's not so good now, I still have faith in it. So
Good.
yeah,
Good. I like that. I like that. Well, let's move over to the other side of the ball. Defensively, we can't ignore Dayon Henley. His incredible flu game. Everyone's going nuts over it. He's posted pictures of himself almost
He's
comatose on
feeling
the
it.
floor in the locker room. He's freaking hilarious, man. I
I
love
know.
that dude's
He's so
personality.
funny.
He is top notch, like top of the list of guys that you'd want to hang out with on this team. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
But it felt like everyone's talking about him now. Every broadcast, every podcast, he's front and center on the All Pro stage if he keeps this up. Add in Derwin James. Tarheeb still, I think, blew everybody away with that open field tackle. They were both lights out all night long. His tackling overall it's been sensational. Twice he took down Gianti in isolation, open field, which is a daunting task.
Crazy.
And that's on top of him.
Corner. Oof.
Not even just a corner, Ryan. Like he was our ball hawk. Like he's our guy that is getting the turnovers last year. That's just kind of our guy that's got those ball skills. And we thought that we would see Cam Hart be this cornerback that could come in with a punishing hit on the boundary. Apparently it's still, I don't know. It's crazy. So these fifth round corners, man, I know some people were dogging hard a little bit. We'll talk about that later, but I love this cornerback room. And then you have Derwin coming in, playing like an animal, man, particularly when he was rushing the passer on those fire zone calls. Beautiful game all around, but that's your side of the ball, man. So, I mean, they're all your side of the ball, Ryan, but I know how much you love the defense. So tell us, what were you saying?
I mean, it just felt like the defense was playing just near flawless football. Like, and just the unit as a whole was just stinging. Like everything was connected so well. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I've posted it on a group chat that Geno Smith's passing chart from the end of the game is one of the funniest things I've seen. This is Geno Smith, who since he's become a good player after like 10 years in the league, still amazing that happened. He's been a gunslinger downfield, tight window. I'm gonna throw the ball so hard that it won't matter what your coverage is, sort of thing. And every time he looked up, you see it on the film. Every time he sees a non-traditional tamper and a twist coming on the other side, and he didn't see it coming, he's like, I don't know. I'm just gonna put it down to Genty, who's gonna drop it.
Mhm.
Like we turned him into a check down Charlie. He was 0 for 13 on deep throws. We had 15 pass breakups. That's just, you do not see that. Like, it's just, yeah, you don't see it.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. And you and I were talking about this. It was one of our challenges last week that one of the ways that this team could potentially take advantage of the Chargers is some of those broken up plays, somebody getting beat deep, which we saw happen with the Chiefs a couple times. They cleaned it up. Tony Jefferson, we'll talk about him later as well, came in, did a great job. So just hats off to the guys. They did everything they needed to do on defense, everything we were asking them to do. Couldn't ask for anything more, man. And let's layer in what the national guys are saying. Ryan, you mentioned how you heard Dominique Foxworthy and Mina Kimes on Monday Night Football Breakdown pointing out how Jesse Minter's defense is far more than player execution. This was a quote. One thing I know when I'm watching tape is that nobody covers that well. They are anticipating and preparing in a way that I think is indicative of the coaching they are receiving. Mina and Dominique talked about how every single player is balling out, and it shows that both the scheme design and coaching are just on an elite level right now. What do you think about that, Ryan?
I mean, you can't say it better. That's why we talked about it. It's why we wanted to include it. We don't normally include quotes from the national media. It's because they've understood there that Minter's defense is always like about being prepared for what is coming by his meticulous way he breaks down. I've listened to a talk he does. He obsesses over the details of what coaches are going to call and where they're going to call it in what context, and he knows the tendencies of the other team better than they know themselves. And that's not talking like, okay, you got your grad assistant to go and scout some game and write down what percentage of plays they do this. No, he understands the fundamentals of what they're doing, and he's undoing it whilst they're still calling it. Like, for example, I put a clip on Twitter that you can see first play of the game. They do the same. They dress it with different motions, but the players are still expecting it. Expecting it. They do exactly the same first play concept. The skinny post to the seam that's been isolated by the motion across the formation that's meant to drag out the hook curl defender. It's the same concept against the Patriots who went for 25 yards. What a way to start a game. It gives you impact straight away. Minter has told them to expect it, but they're not overcommitting to it either. It's perfect. And Gilman just waits, bounces his feet. He doesn't take any steps backwards, which is always a tell that he knows what's coming. Fires down, gets a pick that turns the game. And that's one game sample size, yeah? To understand someone's tendencies in one game sample size, you need to know football like completely. If you watch that talk that Minter gives, he basically talks about how 2nd and 5 and 2nd and 7 are completely different animals. Like, and he quotes at the top of his head. He's like, yeah, college teams run RPO at this percentage from this distance from the sticks, but in this game context, at this time in the game, if they're losing by 4 points and they've got 7 yards to go, they tend to run screens at this rate. Like, that's how well he understands this stuff, and it's just coming through in an incredible way, and that's exactly the type of details that the Chargers are going to need to beat tougher teams down a stretch. I mean, and we'll start with this week's opponents, the Broncos.
Yeah, and Ryan, when you talk about him kind of knowing what these tendencies are going to be and how Alohi knew what to look for, do you think Alohi was that already called in a sense where they're like, hey, it's looking like they like to open up with this style play. This is what we want to look for. Or is it when you see that motion happening, Alohi, you should know that this is probably coming. Look out for this. Where does that teachable moment come from in the preparation?
It is this will be in the film room. They would have gone through and it would have been I know Chip Kelly because of previous games that I've studied of his. Like, he brought another mentor where we went back and watched his Eagles stuff, his UCLA stuff, then his Ohio State stuff, and then he would have been saying, okay, I know he likes to open the game with an explosive pass that he knows has worked in previous weeks, that his players know that worked. He'll do it like that. That's how comprehensive he is in his understanding and his preparation. And he would have said to Alohi, right, we're going to be in cover 3 here, which were cover 3 buzz, I believe. You're in the middle of the field, yeah. Don't bail too deep, yeah, because they're going to try and hit this skinny post up the hash mark. They did it from the same alignment as well, ball in the middle. Like, these are the types of things that you have to notice, especially in the NFL where the hashes are much more in play. So it's a matter of preparing your guys, understanding, but telling them also you're still playing within a structure of a coverage. Don't go bombing away. Don't be Trayvon Diggs and selling out your teammates.
That is the exact kind of attention to detail that the Bolts are going to need when they face off against a coach that's had as long of a tenure as the Denver Broncos have in Sean Payton. So he's going to be somebody that Jesse Minter has a lot of tape that he's going to be able to pull from. It'll be interesting to see what the defensive game plan is. But before we dive into that game preview, we're going to really quickly give our players shout outs for the last game. I'm going to start off by saying hats off to Trey Harris. Looked very comfortable in limited action. It's kind of tough pulling up some unsung heroes from this week because everyone played so well as a whole and they've been getting a lot of attention. But I really want to shine a little bit of light on Trey because we know what role we want him to have in this offense. We want him to be that X that it really solidifies the room moving forward, playing a role that we've seen QJ try to get forced into that QJ has really struggled with. Couldn't have shown it any better than on that back shoulder catch that he made. That was beautiful. Herbert delivered him a back shoulder dime. He fully extended his hands out and just made the cleanest catch, made it look easy. Did something similar with just a very strong slant route in the game. Couldn't ask for more in just a slow ramp up for this rookie and bringing him into the offense. What do you think, Ryan? Who's your first character? Who's
But
your
just
first
quickly on
player?
Trey, that strong
Yeah.
slant was on the quick triple slant concept that is Roman's first stretch into quick game, which I'm enjoying. But it's more the fact that he's unafraid to catch over the middle of the field, which, if I'm being honest, obviously Keenan and Lag can do it, but they do it in a different way. They're not doing it in a big body like FU way.
Mhm.
Quinton's not built like that, despite being that size. So it's a skill set that we've needed, and it almost replaces the tight ends at times. So that's really cool. My shout's a bit of an unconventional one. I'm going to give it to Cam Hart because I think he's getting dogged on social media, and I'm also to blame, not because I put bad things on social media about players, but also in the broadcast. I thought he was getting beat a couple of times. And then the camera kept panning to him and made it look worse. Everyone goes, "Oh, it was Cam Hart," because the camera's pointing at him and the camera knows. But when you go back and watch the All 22, there were two plays that were negative from him. The first one was the interchange that Al has rightly pointed out was a communication error, but I still think would have should have gone with him because it was a very late call, and you know if Cam's got his back turned. That's not something you normally do that late onto a motion. And the other one was that motion behind the stack. That was a fantastic route, I have to say, and completely well played. That is a man beater. It's designed to do that. He could, if he overcommitted. By the way, it's a read as well from Myers. So if he overcommitted to the inside, he's got acres of space down the sideline due to the natural patterns of the route. So from that bunch concept that was having a little bit of success against the man before Mintz changed it. But if you look at the rest of Cam Hart's tape, he had a fantastic breakup from off coverage, but it got called back for the softest downfield contact flag you're ever going to see. And also, if you go back and watch the play where he hurt his hip, but look at the space he made up by chasing that across the field and planting a tackle on the receiver. I think it was number one. His game was good, and I don't want people thinking it wasn't. So go back, watch the tape, and look forward to next week on him. Who's yours, man? Before we move on to the
Love
Broncos.
it. I love it. For me, we're going to keep it in the secondary. We couldn't do this whole podcast without giving a shout out to Tony Jefferson coming off the practice squad, getting activated. And like we said before, the biggest challenge of the game was to make sure that the Raiders' speed and Geno's deep ball isn't what kept them in this game. And let's be real, Ryan, like all game, even though we handedly had control throughout, if any one of those drives had a bomb that all of a sudden got the Raiders a touchdown real quick, the game could have been turned on its head. But the defense was not letting it happen, and Tony Jefferson was a big part of that. They did toss up a long thrown punt that Tony came down with for an interception. That gives the boys 3 picks of the day, but I'll only say that I'll say Geno threw 2 picks on the day and he punted 1, but that's fine. It's still a great play. They still played lights out. And anytime you have a guy filling in for an established starter that, this time last year, we were all talking about how amazing Molden was. Well, Molden wasn't there. TJ stepped in, did an amazing job. So can't really be more impressed by how he did. And you've got one more, Ryan. Who do you got for us?
So it's a kind of double one, as I always try and bend the rules. Deshaun Hand, mainly because he is the one out of the 4 defensive interior defensive linemen that isn't getting their headlines, but he is playing just as well, if not better. So first of all, he's starting. People act like he's some sort of like rotational guy. They're all rotational to a degree, but he is the one that comes on the field first with Tar, and I think he actually outsnapped Tar as well. He has a fantastic little swim move that he's been using to full effect, and everything he was doing at the Dolphins, which by the way now we're into the context of this season. I think everyone that had a good highlight on the Dolphins should should be elevated a little more this season, because whoa, they're bad. And yeah, I think Han's been fantastic, and he should be getting more plaudits. But this is a take as part of a take, is that the interior defensive line, the 4 starters, that's obviously Tart and Caldwell, oh boy, Caldwell, and Naquan Jones, who's been given his flowers this week, because I think everyone is right in saying Tito is not being elevated above Jones anymore. I have a bit of a bold statement that it's the deepest defensive line group in the league. Interior defensive linemen, don't count edges. And I went through and tracked this because I was like, do I have a point here or am I just shooting at air? And I'd say the only people who can compete are the Packers and the Eagles. But again, they're not they're 3.5. So they don't have four guys they can all rely on. And ESPN ranked them the Chargers group as the 31st. So I think everyone needs to learn a lesson. Don't doubt Jesse Minter and don't doubt Joe Ortiz and don't doubt Mike Elston because they're going to turn whoever turns up into these guys. Not because they're bad to begin with, they're identifying them correctly and bringing them up and through with small coaching points that are making a huge difference. And I'd like to see anyone find me another that deep. So, yeah.
Dude, I love it because you and I clearly had the same mindset going into this because we've been talking nonstop over Facebook Messenger about how amazing Caldwell's game was, but we both don't want to just keep every podcast being like, "Oh, Caldwell's our guy this week. Caldwell's our guy this week." So
What a
we've been
surprise.
silent about it, but
Yeah.
holy shit, man, the way that he chased down Geno to not let him scramble out of the pocket, guys,
So good.
how we have seen for so long Joey Bosa taking that inside spin move, losing containment of a quarterback and letting a quarterback or a running back sometimes just take off, on a scramble or a bubble or something. And there's just nothing there. And we saw that this week. That almost happened. But this giant hulking man that is just it takes up the screen came hauling from the middle of the field and cut Geno's angle. I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. That guy's athleticism jumps off the screen. So sorry, we were trying not to gush too much. He doesn't have a place in the pod. He's not in the script, but just know the appreciation and the love for that man is very palpable on this podcast.
I'm gonna have to get a 99 there. I'm gonna have to soon, man.
And
Oh
you
my
got to get
God.
one big enough to cover all the other ones. Just one big jersey.
Just get a game worn jersey.
That might be the best pick we've made in I don't know how long. To get him in the third round, I cannot wait to see how that continues to develop. But anyway, sorry. Let's move on to the Denver Broncos now because we could talk about that man all pod. Let's get to it. The Denver Broncos, they're a weird team. They got a young quarterback that has these flashes of brilliance, but they've got real vulnerabilities on both sides of the ball, which have popped up in each of the last two games. So, Ryan, let's talk about matchups. Start us off offensively.
So last year we had a little bit of trouble with Cortland Sutton. His size was something we could not match. However, we have addressed that very much. So Cam Hart is obviously the primary size guy, but we've also got St. Juice behind him, and St. Juice is getting regular snaps as well. Shout out Minter, who somehow is rotating corners like it's nothing. By the way, nobody is talking about that. That he's actually going in full rotation of his starting four corners, and it's seamless. That's unbelievable. Ask any coach how hard that is. But anyway, with Cortland Sutton we struggled a bit. I think we've got answers there. And Marvin Mims' speed can take the top off. Again, safeties have been playing really well. And Troy Franklin looked like he's starting to round out into the player that many thought he could be. I wasn't super high on him. And I'm hoping that my assessment was right. Because if they all round out in their form, they can be quite a potent combination. The secondary communication is therefore going to be tested, and Sean Payton is so good at targeting whoever your weakest guy in the link is and spamming that. In terms of who those in coverage who have been slightly weaker, now I'm not saying they've played worse, but just slightly weaker, and that's Troy Dye and Cam Hart. As much as I'm praising Cam Hart, there are areas of his game he is not excellent in. So if they get that mismatch between, they get Sutton on to someone smaller, and then they get the faster guy out on Cam Hart, can he be protected from going over the top? That's going to take excellent communication, which we have been doing. It's going to be a matter of continuing that. So have you got something on the offensive side of the ball, man?
I would say we got to watch out for old friend of the show, J.K. Dobbins. And RJ Harvey, they've got a good running back combo there. They haven't really gone nuts yet. JK has looked every bit of the running back he was for us last year. That said, though, Ryan, there's a reason why they wanted to move off of him, right? He tends to get a little bit too creative, bounce things outside. So what tomorrow's going to be about, or sorry, tomorrow, Sunday. Now we can't release this thing until Saturday. Dang it. What this weekend's going to be about is making sure that the guys stay disciplined in their gaps. Don't over pursue. Don't make sure we set those edges, contain. So that's what I think are in the run defense game. Our focus needs to be on. The Broncos really like to stress defenses with wide zone blocks to test that edge containment. This is where Mack's absence could end up mattering. And we're going to need to see somebody step up and fill that void. So overall, I wouldn't say I'm worried about it yet, but I do want to see somebody, opposite Tooley, whether it's Bud, whether it's one of the young guys, step in and make sure we work on that containment. I don't know. What do you think, Ryan?
I mean, that's the one thing I've found really frustrating about Bud. He is who he is. He's not going to be a flashy pass rusher, but when he loses contain on scramble drills, it grinds my gears, man. I literally say it in the chat, and I send some expletives and gifs, and because if you can't be bad, if you can't be good, just be disciplined. And he keeps staying. You can see him going like, "Oh, I could," and he does, and he either goes, and then Gino's got a lane up the inside. And Bo Nix is pretty good at scrambling. He's got that typical, what we call a stereotypes. Oh, he's got that surprising quickness, and oh, he's got that sneaky athleticism. Oh, we could stop with those tropes. But yeah, anyway, the Chargers' methods of attack without Mack are fire zone based. There's a lot of success against the Raiders, and I think we're going to continue with them. So it's going to be out there. Discipline, D-line play, interchanging. Guys kept dropping off. I like when Bud drops off. He's actually pretty good in coverage, and also it gets him out of the way when we're doing contain. And instead of that, you can put Dion or Derwin in a spy/blitz role, which we saw with Henley when he went on that beautiful blitz, a delayed blitz, because it was, again, he was in spy, he saw Gino on his own, he saw a gap, saw the lineman turn, he went. That's the type of thing we're gonna have to do with Bo as well, and I think it bodes pretty well. And I mean, to be I know. Oh, feeling it. But yeah, but he did. I was trying to remember this right. If I remember rightly, last season Bo had some success on the move. Am I remembering that right? Yeah.
Yeah. He did have success when he was on the move last year. I think he was the sixth best QB that we faced in the season in terms of DVOA when out of structure. So yes, and I remember he did it with his legs a few times. Like, he did challenge the boys quite a bit. So Peyton's a good coach, and he does know how to scheme to his opponents. So it definitely will be interesting. I did not think Nix was going to be much of anything in the NFL. It's really interesting seeing these quarterbacks that, took their time in college and developed and graduated later, coming out and actually looking more prepared than we would otherwise think. Before, those older guys, remember, what was his name? Brandon Weeden came out as
it's always the one
26 or 26 or 27-year-old quarterback drafted in the first round.
Married with kids, like. Yeah.
He's like directing the NFL to his 401k. Like, hey, can we split this up? Like, it's just direct deposit here. So it's surprising seeing all these older guys coming in and playing well, because that's not what we were used to seeing. Normally the better talents, would declare early and then would be first round guys. And now you're seeing these guys that are taking their time and working out a lot of their kinks, and they might not be as flashy or as sexy quarterbacks coming out of school, but can settle into a game manager role pretty well, or in Nix's situation, that's kind of just creative playmaker that doesn't seem to get too flustered. So yeah, let's take a look at the other side of the ball. Ryan, what do you think defensively?
I mean, you have to start with that front, right? Like, they've got let's just say it frankly, it's scary front. So you've got Nick Bonito, who is currently leading the NFL in pass rush win rate with a ridiculous 39%. That's not even a low volume, by the way. That is Yeah, I think he's also second in pressures. And then you've also got Zach Allen, who's an All-Pro interior defensive lineman. That little bit four-eye tweener role, but can slide inside as well. Then you got Jonathan Cooper. Then you've got Jonah Ellis as well. Like they're stacked at the pass rush, so it's going to be about that. The things we've talked about: can the Chargers O line communicate, pass off? Secure the gaps between them as well as through their chest just as well. And, otherwise we might have the same sort of stuttering effect that the second half had against the Raiders. So it's something we've really got to keep in mind.
Gotcha. And then we also got to watch out, or something to keep an eye on. And I'm curious to see how you feel about this, Ryan, because it's almost similar to what we challenged last week, and we didn't really get it. We got more passing, but Denver is allowing 4.8 yards per carry on designed rushes, which is 26 in the NFL, with a run stop win rate of 31%, which is 15th. It's pretty surprising given how that defensive front is built. Hampton and Harris should find opportunities to run early if the team decides to go that direction. But do you think we're going to see more of the script from last week where we really just continue to lean heavy on the passing game, or should we try to establish more of the run and beat them up a little bit in the trenches?
I think that in my mind straight away when you're looking at those numbers and their team, you don't want to run it down their throat. Like as much as they their numbers say that it might be a volume issue, I'm not sure. But they have got hard hitting guys. I know they've all been banged up though, which is what we all said when they went through their free agency class. They got Hufanga banged up. Greenlaw banged up. So like as much as they are hard hitters, they're going to come down. Maybe I haven't checked their snap counts, but maybe if they've been missing those and they get them back, that's not something you want to do. Plus, as everyone so far has done this season, the Colts have abused him. Even in their first week matchup, Riley Moss is getting picked on as their second corner, and even their nickel hasn't been playing that well. So like that's where I think you pass to set up the run once again. Go with what you're strongest at the same time as setting up something for later on in the game. The only question I have is always it's really hard to start running the ball in the second quarter, so we'll have to run the ball even if it's not working. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, let's wrap things up, guys. This has been the PowderKeg podcast. But before we go, we need to give our player challenges. So I'm going to start us off, Ryan, to challenge these guys for the next game against the Broncos. I think we need to see Zion really. It's tough, right? Because PFF gave him such a strong grade. And like I said, the unit as a whole definitely earned a beyond passing grade for how they played last week. The one thing I noticed is that there are times, and I think you and I are on the same page here. In fact, I think all of Charger Nation is. The biggest concern is Bozeman, right in center, especially in pass blocking. And Zion, a lot of the time, was double teaming with Bozeman or was kind of looking his way first. And after he engaged in a block or made sure Bose was okay, would start looking Joe Alt's way. And one time he even peeled off of a block with Bozeman to go help, to go help Joe. And he just ended up taking himself out of the play. Herbert had to take off and basically go on a scramble drill. And the guy that Bozeman was on was able to quickly get off of him and, got to Herbert and cut him off. So my big thing for Zion this week is, man, just go ahead as long as there's not someone lined up right on you. If Alt is on an island and you're in a double team block with Bose, just stay there, man. Look for another blitzer to come in, do whatever you have to do, but why don't you just punish the guy that is in front of Bose instead of just help them contain there? Like Bose is the one that needs some help. Let Joe be Joe. Ryan's pointed this out before, but there's some times where guys that are that good at tackle don't even want that extra block help. They don't want the running back to come in and chip somebody because then it takes them off of their rhythm or momentum or whatever have you. So Zion, just stick to your assignment. I understand you got to look for the stunts and everything like that, but if Joe's got him engaged and somebody else doesn't go to Joe's side, go ahead and stay on your guy or stay on Bozeman's guy, because that is who we collectively as the Bolt fam are much more concerned about. Ryan, who's your first challenge going to?
So it's Amara in Hampton, and not for the reasons where people have been talking about. That fumble was a bad exchange by Herbert, which is something I'm going to talk about a bit. And obviously he was going to get lit up in the backfield anyway. So, but it's more about him speeding up his process in the backfield. He was fantastic at North Carolina by negating the terrible play from his offensive line, especially in his senior year. Despite the stats, he made them good because he had to read, understand, move in the backfield. And in college, you can afford to do that. The NFL, you can't. And on the short yardage downs, he's winning by physicality, but he's getting contacted in the backfield. Yes, the line could be doing better, but he's got to be in the rhythm of the offense. He's got to take the snap at, building up to full speed and then bursting from that. Too many times he's chopping his feet in the backfield, and it's just not cohesive to good run structure. And it's may have even contributed to the reason I've just thought of this of why Jim Harbaugh wanted to do some trick plays on fourth down. He's taking credit for that, but Harbaugh's saying, "Oh yeah, blame me," but it could be the fact that like he's not, his fourth down guy is not within the rhythm of the offense, and that's natural for a rookie at this stage. That development curve is steep. I love how everyone's slandering like Hampton. Name me a rookie running back that's playing well.
Yeah,
like there aren't any. So yeah,
Saw
he might
another
be
one.
the best. So yeah, and don't give me Bill Crosby Merritt or whatever his name is, in that horrible
Wild Bill,
Lions
baby.
offense. Yeah. And what about you,
Um,
Carl? You got one more.
yeah, man, I'm calling it audible because we forgot to talk about it during the show. So I'm going to go ahead and say it now. It's not going to be a player. It's going to be Greg Roman, and it's going to be piggybacking off of what you just said right now. That play call drove me nuts. I know you're not a fan of the jet sweeps to Darius Davis or Quentin Johnson. Personally, I don't mind those if you want to try them on first or second down. If the team is guessing pass and you can get a little creative there and you might catch them with their pants down and you still have third down to play with, I'm okay with taking gambles then. But God, we've seen the Philadelphia Eagles now play the most boring brand of and short football we've ever seen historically, right? It's and short. And all they do is line up in their big old tush push and they get the first down. Everyone knows it's coming. The defense now is mocking their cadence and trying to throw them off by mimicking their cadence so that one of them jumps, and they still can't get them to screw it up. It is so good that everyone knows it's coming and they still can't stop it. And I just want Jim and Greg to embrace that a little bit more. I totally get where you're coming from with Omarion might be a little too slow in the backfield with his processing to be that guy on fourth and short. That's why we got Harris. So let's just lean on him in those situations then. But with the identity that this team wants to have, even when we're a passing offense, if one of your premier free agent additions was a power running back, and then you doubled down and drafted a first round power running back that both churn their legs so well, do not get frickin' cute on fourth and short. Just let someone hammer it. Handing it on a jet sweep to QJ or DD is malpractice. So that one got me. That one got my hat came off. That one got me so much.
No, I like that.
I was, my camera's all shaking. That was way too much for me on Sunday. That one got me heated. What
No, I
about
get
you,
it.
Ryan? What's your last challenge, man?
Well, I'm also vulnerable. I was going to talk about how Herbert needs to improve the small details of his game to go from an incredible passer and one of the top five quarterbacks to be in the top three. Yeah, and when I say top three, I mean with Allen and Lamar. Yeah,
This
because
is how you cheat here, Ryan. You're like, I'm going to audible, but really I'm
yeah,
going to
no,
give you mine, and then I'm going to give you another.
Okay, I'm going to give you the end of this quickly. His zone reads and his handling of that. Yes, it's not something he does a lot, but you've got to be better if you're going to be this elite guy. And also playing outside of structure. That one throw he did that was almost a pick was just not the right call. But no, my one is going to be to steal the one you were going to say, and that's Kyle
Yeah.
Kennard. Yeah, because his opportunity is now. And if he doesn't, if he's not ready and they elevate Cleveland Farrell and Rashad Weaver off the street above him, we're essentially saying Kennard was a pick where we're not ready. And, or even worse, if Boygby starts over him. I get it because he wasn't active for the game, Kennard. I understand that on the game situation. You cross-trained a Boygby there because he's got no other home. Um, but Kennard has got to get on the field. That's all. That's my challenge to him is get on the field, get on the game day roster, and be that fourth rotation guy. And because he has to be, yeah. Otherwise, he's getting a red shirt year, which is not
Mhm.
something anyone wanted to see, especially with someone who was so productive. It wasn't like he's a Shamar Stewart who was a ball of clay. No, he was a very productive player, SEC Player of the Year. So yeah.
I couldn't agree more, Ryan. And if they see themselves in that position where somebody they drafted to hopefully be have a role in this season all of a sudden is deemed not ready to get on the field despite Mack being out, and they start leaning on these vets that weren't signed until the third week of the season, they really need to revisit that trade situation, whether it's going after the Dolphins for one of their edges, because they have some that could be available if they start looking to sell. Like I said, you and I both think Trey should be an option. If the Bengals say no for now, I think it's only a matter of time because they are such a cheap organization. Are they really going to keep paying him when their season does look like it could be over? They need Joe Burrow so badly. So I don't know, Ryan, but they're going to have to figure something out if, like you said, Kyle Kennard is not on the field on Sunday because, yeah, that's if not then or if not this week, when is he coming on the field? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, we've also talked about I've seen on Twitter quite a lot, like for example, Carter Donick. He's talked about Aziz Ojulari or someone like that, who could be an option for the. He's out of favor at the Eagles right now, so like he's down the depth chart despite them paying him in the off season. So it there are players out there. You don't have to go at the top of the market, but there are options. I know if Kennard isn't active against the Broncos, I expect them to be on the phones. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Well, that is it today for the PowderKeg podcast, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe at the bottom if you haven't already, and come visit Ryan and I at stormcloud.blog.
Bow up.